This is CHSR 97.9 FM here in Fredericton, New Brunswick, Canada, and you're listening to Python's Paradise, your film and music show. And this is your host, Greg Gilbert, aka the Python Hyena. And folks, I have a wonderful guest on the phone here. It's my second Skype interview. And I'm very honored to have him. He has been a stuntman in the film industry for a long time. And as I said back in February, I had the legendary Ted White on here from Friday the 13th, the final chapter. Well, I got another great stuntman on here today, celebrating the 35th anniversary of Halloween 2 and Escape from New York. We have the guy who played Michael Myers, Dick Warlock. How do you do, Dick?
I'm doing just fine, Greg. Thanks for asking me.
Oh yeah, I'm quite honored to have you on here. Like, wow, like you've got quite a line of credits. Like, you've had quite the career. You got to get this into a book.
I've been asked to do that, and there's a guy in Los Angeles that we've been emailing back and forth. And I told him I was writing my life story, and it was too soon, to give him anything. But he said, "Okay, when you get that done or wherever you're ready to share," he said, "get a hold of me, and we'll work together, collaborate like Bill O'Reilly." Well, you don't know Bill O'Reilly, but anyway,
I know who he is.
Right, writers do collaborate with people that can write. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I understand.
The ideas and all the information, but I'm not good at putting it down chronologically and in a really sense of order that it makes it nice and readable.
Okay. Well, yeah, I was happy there you got in touch with me earlier. I was in the flea market at the time, and I was like, I have no sense of where I am, as you discovered. New Brunswick just seems to be one of these places that I never really hear mentioned in movies or anything like that. But you looked me up. You know where I am, I guess, now, huh?
Yeah, I know exactly where you are. And I didn't realize you were as far east from my declination as you are. But dang, you're a long way east.
Yeah, we are. The closest we have to celebrities here, and they're from Halifax, the Trailer Park Boys. Have you ever heard of them?
No, I haven't.
Okay. Well, people either have heard of them or they haven't. Ivan Reitman produced their first movie, but they've done 11 seasons here. So they're a comedy trio. It's basically it's dope humor. But they're very, very funny. But
is it a show?
Yeah, it's a show. I believe you guys can get it out your way. I think it's on Netflix. It's about basically three fellas that live in a trailer park, and it's got a lot of weed humor in it. But they've done 11 seasons. But their first movie came out in 2006, and Ivan Reitman was the producer of that movie. So.
Okay, you got to remember now, you're talking to an old timer. I don't know. I think you said weed humor.
Yeah, like marijuana.
I tried that. I don't know, 40 years ago, 50 years ago, about 6 times, and I said that's not for me. And I've never touched that. And my extent of alcohol is I have a glass of wine once in a while with an Italian dinner. So keep that in mind when you're talking about these things. And Netflix, you were saying you're kind of a neophyte at Skype. Well, I'm that way with Netflix. I don't have it, don't use it, don't ever intend to use it. So you're talking over my head in that area too.
Well, you know what? I actually don't have Netflix either. I actually don't watch television. I just got it set up, Blu-ray player up, and I just watch my movies. That's all I do. I've never tried weed. No, I don't even smoke. But like you, I do have a glass of wine every once in a while because I heard red wine's supposed to be good for your heart. So.
Yeah, that's what I hear.
Yeah. So
Just had a good report from my heart doctor a couple of weeks back. He said he didn't want to see me again for another 5 years. I guess it's like a colonoscopy. Every 5 years, once you reach 50, they want to bring you in and make a payment on the Mercedes or the boat or something.
Yeah.
It's so darn expensive for all that stuff.
Oh yeah. But wow, like you have been in the film industry for a very, very long time. I'm going to assume now you're retired, huh?
Yeah, I retired. I still fool around. I did a play and a couple of local, homegrown movies, but I retired for all intents and purposes back in 1995. Now, the last movie that I worked in that you'd call a major motion picture was Spider-Man, Spider-Man, the original one.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
that was in
noticed.
'02.
Yeah, I noticed that on the Internet Movie Database. Your last one was Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Did you enjoy that?
Well, we were there for a week. It was kind of a gift. Uh, there really wasn't a lot to do, and there's only one scene that I am even identifiable in, and the whole thing takes place. The week long shooting schedule that we had was the balcony scene with all the gray headed guys, the chief of police and the fire department and different dignitaries and all the gray head guys. And since I got gray hair, I fit in perfectly. It's where the Green Goblin throws the bomb at the balcony, or at those guys, and the balcony goes down, and the heroine is right at the edge, ready to go over, and here comes Spider-Man, and there's a battle all over the place, and fire, and bricks and all kinds of stuff. So it was a nice gift. It was a week of work, and I hadn't been doing anything for a number of years before that. So it was a nice deal, and the residuals are good too.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm going to tell you, I got a whole list of like credits here that you've done, and some of these I've interviewed people from before. But I think the film I'm going to start with is Halloween 2 because it's celebrating its 35th anniversary, and you played Michael Myers. Like, how did you get the part to play Mike?
You mean you've never read that? Now, Greg, don't. I guess it's interesting to hear it out of my mouth, but you can go and read that on a multitude of websites, even my own. But
Yeah,
I'll
but
I'll repeat
a
it
lot
again
of
because
people.
I've answered the same questions, many, many times, and they're all over the web. But here goes. I had worked with John Carpenter and Deborah Hill on Escape from New York, and when we finished that picture, it was a few months later, I got a call from Deborah Hill, and she said, I'd like you to come in, and we're going to do a little movie here, and I want you to be the stunt coordinator. So I went in and I talked to her about it. She briefed me on what the story was about, the guy in the mask, and she mentioned that it was Shatner's face and so on. So, but she said, I want you to meet the director. And I said, where is he? And she says, down at the end of that hall. So I said, okay. So I'm walking down the hallway, and there's some empty offices, and then I come to an office where there's a desk and a chair, and the mask is laying on the desk. I said, I bet that's it. So I went in, I got it, put it on, and walked to the director's doorway and stood there and looked at him. He said, who are you? I didn't answer him, I just stared at him. And he said, who the hell are you? And I stared for a little bit longer, and I started chuckling. I took the mask off. I said, hi, I'm Dick Warlock, and I'm here for the job as a stunt coordinator. He said, okay. And he said, sit down. So I did. And we chatted about what he expected and so on, and that was fine. And as I was leaving, still got the mask in my hand. I turned around and I said, is there any reason I can't play this guy? And he looked me up and down, and he said, if Deborah doesn't care, I don't care. So I went in back and I told her about our meeting and told her what we'd said about me playing it. She said, I don't care. So I ended up playing the character. And at the end, oops, I'm sorry. At the end, I asked her about the mask and the other paraphernalia. And I said, "Can I have that?" She said, "Yeah, because we're never going to do another movie with that guy, that character." So I said, "Oh, great." So I ended up with the coveralls and the mask and the scalpel and the L-rod knife and the boots that I had.
Yeah. No, I don't mean to sound repetitive with questions you've been asked before, but I've had situations on here where I know the answer to something, but yet there's always these people that are going to hear this and they're going to come at me and they're going to say, "Why you didn't ask that?" And I'm like, "Oh man, you know." But
Yeah.
yeah, that. So my apologies there, but I know I would end up getting that thrown at me, but unfortunately, Deborah Hill is no longer with us. I remember when she had passed away.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, she and John had worked together quite a number of times, and you did quite a few pictures for John Carpenter. You know, like Halloween 2, Escape from New York, The Thing, Big Trouble in Little China. Do you have a favorite among those?
I mean, John wasn't director of that, but he had a lot to do with Halloween 3 as well.
Yeah, oh, that's right. Yeah, yeah. Rick Rosenthal directed Halloween 2. And
Hmm.
I think it was Tommy Wallace that did the third one, I think, if I remember
Yeah,
correctly.
it was. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Tommy played Michael in a couple of scenes. All of the action stuff. Tommy was Michael Myers in the first movie.
Okay. I thought it was Nick Castle.
Well, there were 5 different people that played Michael Myers in the first movie.
Okay.
There was, in fact, Deborah Hill was the little in the opening when you see the hand go into the drawer and get the knife, and then the Halloween mask goes on and so on.
Yeah, that's Deborah Hill. Yeah.
That was Deborah Hill.
Yeah.
Jim Winburn, stunt guy, he played Michael, taking the shots and falling off the balcony.
Okay.
And then Tommy Lee Wallace, he did all the things like picking the guy up and sticking him to the wall and then tilting the head and looking at him.
Okay, I did not know this.
Scene in Halloween 1, well, that was Tommy. And when he broke through the closet door and the light was swinging back and forth and Jamie Lee stuck him in the eye with the hanger and he fell down.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was Tommy. Then it was Nick that raised up in the other
yeah.
shot when they turned around and looking from the doorway where Jamie was on the floor, and he raises up, and that was Nick doing that. And then you have the guy that's been in the movie. I think it was about a total of about 5 or 7 seconds. Tony Moran, where he pulled the mask off his face. Then he pulled it back on. That was the only shot he was ever in the entire movie.
Yeah. No, I'm a huge fan of the original Halloween, and I love the way that the second one, even though it was filmed 3 years later, I loved how it joined the original film almost like pretty much seamlessly, like it was.
Use that very word, seamlessly. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's almost like they shot it the same night, even though they didn't. They did that so well.
Mm-hmm. Well, you had the same crew, the same cameraman. Dean Cundy he really knew his stuff. That's the reason he's won Academy Awards since then.
Yeah.
He was great. So he was able to capture the same feeling.
Yeah.
He was very familiar with it.
Oh, yeah.
I did not. I only saw a few minutes of the remakes of Halloween 2.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't like the what I did see. I didn't like it. My kid told me, my boy, he's an actor, and he told me, he said, "Dad, you're not going to like those movies." And I said, "Why?" And he says, "Because it's, you got your friend in there. Now her name escapes me. Anyway." All the nudity and language, you're not going to like it. And he was right. The little bit, I think I watched 5 minutes, and it was F this and F that, and that kind of stuff it ruins a movie for me. I worked on a picture years ago called Used Cars.
Okay.
With and they ruined the movie because they had to stick FU in the movie time and time again, and kids couldn't watch it. And it's a good kids movie, I think it's funny. It's a great little film,
Oh
but
yeah.
no, they got to stick all that language in it. And for me, it ruined it for kids. I'd never take my kids to go see it.
Yeah, yeah, I hear ya. Yeah, Used Cars with Kurt Russell.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
No, but no, I hear you there. Rob Zombie was the guy that made the two remakes, and number one, Halloween did not need a remake for starters, and number two, it's like the original Halloween had very, very, very little bad language in it, and had very little nudity. It had a little bit out of PJ Souls, but not over the top. But
Hmm.
I found that, and I've got nothing against Rob Zombie, you know, but I gotta say it's like he took Carpenter's films, those first two Halloweens, and it's like he peppered it with the language. He made the violence a lot more graphic than it needed to be,
Hmm.
and I didn't find that the girl who played Laurie Strode was anywhere near as compelling or interesting as what Jamie Lee Curtis brought to the table.
Yeah. To me, I did another movie that I'm pretty proud of called Jaws, right?
Yeah,
Jaws 2, 3, 4, and whatever. I don't think they can hold a candle to the original.
I agree.
You see very few remakes or series that really come up to the first one, the original. They're always the best.
There's a few cases where the argument can be made. Like I thought the 1978 version of Invasion of the Body Snatchers
Hmm.
was really, really, really good. And I did like the remake of, or the American remake of Girl with the Dragon Tattoo.
Yeah.
But, but I
Now,
do, huh?
I did see a movie recently that I thought was better than the original, and that's The Magnificent Seven.
I didn't see the recent remake. Is it better?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. I've seen
It's
the
a little
original.
tighter. The action's better. The acting is better. I mean, you had some big stars in the first one.
Yep.
You know, James Coburn and it's
Steve,
just a whole list of them.
Steve McQueen, Yul Brynner, Charles
Yeah.
Bronson. Yeah. Yeah. But no, the Rob Zombie, I think, kind of went. His spin on those remakes of Halloween, I think, was way off, and I don't think it was necessary. A lot of the stuff that he did either. So, but anyway, Halloween 2, 35 years old. What do you think about the fact that it has kept it up this long?
I had no idea. I didn't even know about the Halloween movies when I got the job. To be honest with you, I'd never seen Halloween. I don't really go to movies. Uh, the latest one that I went to was, like I said, the Magnificent Seven remake, but that's probably the first one in 5 or 7 years that I went to. But anyway, where were we? I completely lost track of
Talk
my
about
thought.
Halloween 2. I was gonna
Yeah.
say you're like the second person. I've contacted one person from this movie before I contacted you. Was Pamela Susan Shoop, who was one of the nurses in it, the one that gets drowned in the
Yeah.
yeah. And she said her schedule was really busy and she wasn't able to do my show, but she sent me a beautiful autographed picture. So very, very nice lady.
Yeah, well, yeah, she is.
Yeah.
I hadn't seen her for years and saw her at a convention, and we started doing them together. You know, I would mention her name, and she'd mention mine, and we'd try to do the show together and sit next to each other because I really like Pam and her husband. They're really great people. Everybody on the show I found were from Lance Guest to, everybody that was on there was good.
Well, I noticed when she was her head was being dunked under that water. She gets pulled up once, and her hair is over her face and nose. It's like,
Yeah, we had a system. I don't know if you've ever heard that story. We had a system where I put my hand on the back of her head, and we'd worked it out. When I push, when you're ready to go down, then you go down. And when you're ready to go up, you apply a little pressure to my hand, and I'll raise you back up. And it worked out very well. And I think it took about a half a day to do that all. Every time she came up, then they had to apply more warm makeup. The burn effect from the water. I could never figure out why my hand never burned, but hers did. Are you aware that the water was not heated that they were in?
I might have read something about that.
Yeah, they had goose pimples. It was funny. I was one of the few people that was allowed in there, because I was around there in costume. But they ran everybody else out. Just you just don't want a lot of guys standing around gawking at the ladies.
Yeah, and she was gorgeous.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, she was.
But she was,
And I never saw her from the front until I saw the movie. I always saw her from the back.
yeah. Well, she was very, very nice, sent me a little handwritten letter and said she couldn't schedule an interview, but I thought it was really generous of her to send me a beautiful picture, which she signed, and I thought that was really cool, very nice of her.
Yeah, she's a nice lady.
Yeah. And, of course, Donald Pleasant's no longer with us, but he was so good as Dr. Sam Loomis. Now, as Michael Myers, you must have had some interaction with him.
A little bit. Not basically, it was just that scene in the at the end. They're in the room when he flicked the bic and the fire went off.
Okay.
Because the guy that got stuck with the scalpel and went flying back into the gurney, that was Jesse Wayne.
Okay.
The stunt double for Donald. But I did an interview last night with a fella, and he came here to the house and did a video thing. They're doing a Blu-ray edition of Firestarter.
Okay.
And they were interviewing a few people. I was fortunate enough to be asked, and there again, my mind is going blank. I don't know what the heck I was going to say. I got
Firestarter. You mentioned people came to the house. Firestarter.
Yeah, but I don't remember where I was going with it.
Some people.
I guess I'm hungry. My wife is downstairs fixing supper. So.
Oh, okay. No, you mentioned people came to the house and they're interviewing you about Firestarter.
Yeah, but I can't remember where I was going with it.
I think it was something to do with the actors or something. But
I don't know.
Yeah.
You might. I remember what it was. He asked me. You can cut that out, can't you? Can't you edit this tape a little bit?
Okay.
All right. But he asked me, what did I think of Mark Lester, the director? I said, well, I don't know. I was never around him. And he said, okay. Well, how about Art Carney or Louise Fletcher or Martin Sheen or David Keith? And I said, no, the only one I was around was Drew Barrymore. I said, I used to go in her little schoolroom. It was a trailer. And I'd sit with her and the teacher and, pass the time of day with them. And she signed a picture for me, whatever. So, but I said, I wasn't around the actors because they're on first unit doing all the talkie stuff, and we're on second unit doing the action stuff.
Okay.
So it's the same thing with when I met Donald, he was on Escape from New York.
Oh, okay.
And I spent more time with him then than I did on Halloween.
Okay.
Halloween 2.
Yeah, the reason I mentioned that is because, of course, you were Michael Myers, so I figured that you would have a little more interaction.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
I didn't.
So you didn't have much interaction with Jamie Lee Curtis either, huh?
Oh, yeah, I had a lot more interaction with her because, I just did.
I love Jamie Lee, and she's done very, very well for herself, and, of course, started with the Halloween franchise. But you know,
Yes.
I noticed through your credits, like there's a few films that, according to Internet Movie Database, you didn't even listed you as uncredited for, like Green Berets with John Wayne, I believe,
Yep. Yep.
and Blazing Saddles. Of course, we just lost Gene Wilder, unfortunately.
Yeah, but Blazing Saddles and and the same thing with Green Beret. But Blazing Saddles, there were so many stunt guys. I was on there from the fight that broke out on the Western Street all the way through to the pie fight in the cafeteria, the commissary, and then
Yeah.
running out the front of the studio.
Okay.
And they can't list. They didn't used to do it that much, and I know that Mel Brooks doesn't usually list people anyway, stunt people. He never did in his movies.
Okay.
I did four films with him, and it's like Spaceballs. I don't know if you've ever seen Spaceballs,
Yeah, I have.
but there's a scene where I had to beg Mel for the scene. He said, "No, you're a stunt guy. You fall down. You don't do words." And I said, "Oh, come on, man. Give me a break. I'd like to do that." And it was the scene where Bill Pullman, they've landed on the spaceship and I guess come out of that vacuum cleaner or whatever. And he comes around the corner and he spots me and he comes up and puts his hand on my neck. And I said, "What the hell are you doing?" He says, "The Vulcan pinch." Then you probably know the rest of the scene. "No, stupid, is down here," and so on and so forth. Then I fall on the floor.
Okay.
Well, the next day they show dailies. You know what dailies are, right? And for the
Yeah.
folks that don't, it's whatever we shoot on Monday, we see on Tuesday to make sure that they got everything they wanted. And then that's when the producer and some of those people come and sit in there and watch it. And I say we, but it's nobody but the director and the script clerk and those people, the higher ups. Anyway, when the thing was over and after lunch, the director of photography come over to me and he said, "Listen, I don't want you to say anything to Mel, but you got the biggest laugh in dailies today with that thing you did." And Mel never mentioned it to me. He never said, "Hey, you did a good job. I liked what you did." He never said nothing.
Oh,
So
wow. That's funny.
He's quite a guy.
Yeah, and it also mentions, of course, you mentioned Jaws earlier, and of course 1941 as well.
41 was a one-day deal. It was when the plane crashes on Hollywood Boulevard and John Belushi comes staggering out of the plane and falls down or stumbles or whatever. And there was a little bit of action there, staying out of the way of the plane when they crashed it and so on. But that was the only thing I did on 41. There's a lot of times when we only work one day on a movie, and then there's things like The Abyss, where I'm there for 5 months. So it just depends. Some are long and some are not.
What was it like on The Abyss? Was it a hard shoot?
Yeah, it was for me. That's where I met my wife. Actually, I think I spent more time at the Spartanburg, North Carolina Mall than I did on set. But but I didn't get along with Jim.
Oh.
And it's funny because I met Jim. One day, my friend Stan Winston, I don't know whether you know that name or not.
I know that name, special effects guy, yeah.
Phenomenal guy. I knew him from his first day in the movie business at Disney. But anyway, he called me up and he said, "Dick, I need your help." He said, "Can you get another stunt guy and come down tomorrow?" He said, "I got a little thing I want you to do." So I said, "Yeah, Stan, I'll be down." So I showed up, and he had rigged this little wooden platform thing. He had some broom handles and some trash bags, and he was manufacturing the mother alien that would later turn into a real nice thing for the movie, the Aliens 2 that Jim Cameron did.
Okay, yep.
Who shows up on set while we're doing this is Cameron. So I'd never met the guy, and Stan introduced me to him. And I guess he obviously talked to him about me away from me that I didn't, I never heard about. So when the Abyss comes up, well, a stunt guy went on the show as a stunt coordinator, and he says, "I'm going to stay if you'll let me shoot the second unit." Well, Cameron says, no, I'm shooting the second unit. So he says, well, I'm not going to stay. So he left. Now Gale and Hurd picked the other guy. So Jim goes to Gale and he says, listen, you picked your guy, and he didn't work out. He said, I want to get a guy named Dick Warlock in here as my guy. So I got the call and went down, and it was just a few weeks after they started. But it ended up where Jim Cameron, who I have a lot of respect for because he's a very, very smart guy, very smart, but he's got an ego the size of Texas, and we just clashed that way. He knows everybody's job as well as they do. It's unbelievable how bright this guy. He and Stan Winston and Spielberg are probably the three smartest guys I've ever met in the business. Anyway, it was an exciting thing. It was a fun job to be on as far as what the concept of the abyss, the deep core, and the battle with these underwater machines. The racer, and the way they did that was phenomenal because all those were miniatures. And then Cameron came up with the idea of taking the face and putting it against in with that thing so that it actually looked like the actors were driving those little cab 1 and cab 2 and so on. And that there's a thing that it's a snake of water that comes up to Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio, and she sticks her tongue out, and then that thing sticks its tongue out. He came up with all that.
Okay.
And between him and his brother designing all that underwater gear that those people wore and everything, it was really a learning experience, but it wasn't pleasant as far as my exchanges and interaction with James Cameron.
Okay. Well, I remember growing up. I remember this movie came out before I was born, but I remember him so well. As you were in you'd stunt for the Love Bug, and Herbie Goes to Monte Carlo. What was that like?
I did 3 of them. I did Love Bug, but on the Love Bug I didn't drive Herbie.
Okay.
Kerry Lofton drove Herbie. I doubled Michelle Lee, falling out of a tree and hanging out the top of Herbie when they're driving along on 2 wheels.
Okay.
And Bill Couch is hanging out the door for Buddy Hackett. And I doubled Benson Fong, the Oriental guy, when Herbie's chasing David, the bad guy, and they jump on the back of Herbie's bumper and get drug along. I did that. And I doubled the bear in the car. I was Buddy Hackett in a lot of scenes. I was Joe Flynn in a number of scenes. So I had quite a deal going. And then on Herbie Rides Again, the second one, I doubled Ken Berry.
Okay.
And I doubled Helen Hayes. There's a scene, all the blind driving I did of Herbie, and all, doubling for Ken and Helen. But there's a scene in Herbie Rides Again where they're in an office chasing the guy around with there's soap suds all over the place, and that was kind of iffy because a lot of times I couldn't see the snow, or the soap suds would be up on the windshield, and I'm chasing Everett Creech, who's doubling the actor. And I almost hit him a couple of times, and then I did Herbie Goes to Monte Carlo, and I doubled Dean Jones all the way through that, driving the car, the little car.
Okay.
And so I had a heck of a career thanks to Mr. Disney. I met him first, and I did a lead-in for one of his television shows. He took a liking to me, and he kept me there for 10 years. And I met Kurt Russell at Disney on Escape from New York. Computer Wore Tennis Shoes.
Okay.
And it got me in his contract, and I spent 25 years with him. Did a lot of shows together.
Yeah, you worked with Kurt Russell with Used Cars and Escape from New York. Escape from New York also celebrating its 35th anniversary. I had Adrienne Barbeau on here a year ago November, this month. Had her on last year, and she was quite the lady to talk to. And And Escape from New York, again, right up there with Halloween, one of John Carpenter's best.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. The Thing was good. We spent a lot of time up in Stewart, British Columbia, shooting that thing up on the glaciers in Alaska, I guess it was.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, that was a good movie.
The Thing, and you did, of course, Big Trouble in Little China, which is actually just came to me. That's celebrating its 30th anniversary this year as well.
Really?
Yeah. That just dawned on me just now. And that had
Yeah.
Kurt Russell and Kim Cattrall in it, and one of those
Yeah.
John Carpenter classics.
Yep.
Yeah. And you did The Stunt Man.
Yeah, that was interesting. We shot that in San Diego.
Okay.
Yeah, we shot that down there. One of many stunt guys that was on that show. I did Cats from Outer Space at Disney, Dublin, Canberra, and I had quite a run over there. So all those Disney kid movies, the Computer Wore Tennis Shoes, and Now You See 'Em, Now You Don't, Barefoot Executive, and so on. Those were a blast. I was like 27 years old, and they had me playing 18, which not too bad.
Not bad at all.
Pretty good back then. Youthful, not good.
And you got Dirty Mary, Crazy Larry.
Yeah, that was a fun one. We shot that up in Stockton, California. I saw that recently. And the reason for that is I'm taking all of the highlights that I did throughout my career that I can gather from my youngest son. He came to me and he said, "Dad, would you do me a favor?" And he asked me to get as many highlights of the stunts that I've done over the years, because he's 46 now, but he said, "I never saw a lot of your stuff," because his mother and I split up when he was 8, and he moved out of state, and so he never got to go to on the set with me like he did when he was younger. So I thought that was kind of nice that he asked me to do that. So that's where I saw Dirty Mary, Crazy Larry. I did a little part as a cop in that, and then I'd also, regular stunt guy doing some driving and stuff.
Yeah. And then there's a movie you did. I did an interview with Deborah Shelton back in May, and she was in a movie called Body Double, which you were part of for Brian De Palma.
Yeah, I remember not Brian, but I remember Body Double, and I can't remember the guy's name that I doubled. I fell into there was a spillway in the end of the San Fernando Valley, the water coming down this concrete spillway.
Okay.
And I had to fall backwards down into that and get washed downstream. And then later on, over in Hawaii, on a movie called Pearl 41. It's got another name now, Robert Wagner, and it was about, Pearl Harbor. I doubled that same guy, diving off of one of these little ferry boats going out to the ship, they go out to the ships. And I dove off into the water, which was on fire. And the special effects guy says, "Hey, just swim till you can, run out of breath, then go up and just splash a lot. You'll open a hole in the fire and just take a breath, and you can go on from there." Oh, well, that sounded good. I'd heard you can do that before. So I dove in. I'm swimming along. I'm almost out of air. I go up. I try to open a hole in the fire, and uh-oh. There's no air there. The fire's taking all the oxygen. So now I dropped down and I swam. It was about, 65, 70 yards. It was a long way, maybe 50 yards. I don't know. But I thought I was going to die. I thought my lungs were going to bust. But I finally got to the ship that I was supposed to get to, and I started to climb up, and they hollered cut. So anyway, that's the story. And I wish I could remember the fight. Greg something or other. A nice kid with blonde hair. Nice guy.
In Body Double?
Yeah.
That would have been Greg Henry.
That's him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I had Deborah Shelton on here last month, and she was the woman that got killed with the drill in that film. And
oh, man. Oh, yeah.
Yep. But Yeah, and you mentioned, I think you had said something on the phone with me earlier with Firestarter. You lit in fire in that film?
Was I lit on fire?
Yeah, did you say something like that to that effect, or did I
Yeah,
miss? Okay.
yeah. There were two characters that were FBI guys that were chasing after the lead and Drew. I played. There were two characters, Stenowitz and Knowles, and
Okay.
I was Knowles, and Stenowitz and I, we both get blown up I mean, burned up at the end. She fires balls at us, and I'm seen running backwards. And there's a guy next to me. Yeah, it's George Fisher. He's another guy. He doubled George C. Scott later on, getting blown against a wall. But yeah, we got lit up pretty good on that one. And I also did the fire burn at the end of Halloween 2.
Oh,
You know,
now
when
that
Myers comes walking down
yeah.
the hallway.
How do you prepare for something like that? Are you nervous to do that?
Uh, no, I can't say you get nervous. Uh, it's just what we do. I try to treat it with as much respect as I can and take as much of the danger out of it as I can by preparing with the proper suit, the proper underwear, the proper stuff that you have to wear to prevent yourself from being burned. And even at that, the suit that I had rented from another stunt guy, I didn't even think about it, and I should have. That's part of my job. It had zippers on the forearms to zip it tight. Well, the heat, we did that burn twice. For some reason, they didn't like the first one, so we did it again. But the heat got through those zippers, and not a bad burn, but like a double sunburn, you might say, a blister.
Okay.
My forearm were about 6 inches long on both of them. But yeah, we did that. We did that burn twice. That was a hot burn because we were encased with a ceiling and the walls. It was indoors, and the fire had nowhere to go except to burn me. And I tried to maintain the walk that I had established all throughout the picture. That slow walk, boom, boom, boom. And so I hung in there as long as I could. And then I hit the floor, and I had about 6 safety guys with fire extinguishers come out and put me out.
Wow. And you'd mentioned, of course, you'd worked with Ted White. I've had on here back in February when he was talking about playing Jason in Friday the 13th, the final chapter. And like yourself, he had an incredible story and a career to talk about the people he doubled for and whatnot. And you'd mentioned you worked with him in Escape from New York.
I hired him on Escape from New York.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I was a coordinator, so I hired all the stunt guys
Okay.
and gals. And same thing on Halloween 2. I was a stunt coordinator on there. I was also the cop that ran into Bennett Tramer and hit the van when it blew up.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, Ben Kramer got mentioned only mentioned in that first film. I guess he didn't have a good time in that second film. He got killed off.
Yeah. I didn't even remember him being mentioned in the first one.
Yeah, remember when Jamie Lee Curtis and Nancy Loomis, or now Nancy Kyes, were in the car and they're talking about dating, and she goes, "What about Ben Tramer?" And she goes, "Ben Tramer? You like Ben Tramer?" And it's when they're on their way to they're in the car and
Yep.
yeah.
Is that when she sees her dad?
Yeah.
Yeah, they pull her. Yeah.
Yep, and then of course when she goes over to the house later, Nancy Loomis does, to drop off little Lindsay Wallace. Jamie Lee Curtis goes, "Please call Ben Tramer and say you were only joking."
Yeah, it's funny. That just passed right by me. I never even connected it.
Oh, I love the original Halloween. I've watched it so many times. I seen it at a midnight screening years ago, and it was just an honor to watch it. And
That's my favorite.
what's that?
That's my favorite.
It's my favorite too, and I love PJ Souls an awful lot too, and she's in it, of course. But big fan of that one, so I know that movie really, really, really well.
Yeah.
But yeah, another film that you had worked on that I've done 3 interviews from. I interviewed 3 of the beautiful women that were in it. Was Friday the 13th Part 5: A New Beginning. What did you do in that?
I was a coordinator, stunt coordinator. I hired Tom Morga actually
Okay.
to play Jason. I draw the director Danny Steinman asked me. He says, "Hey, bring in a few stunt guys. I want to pick somebody to play this character." And I said, "Okay." So I knew right off who I wanted. I wanted Tom. So I brought John Hawk and Tom and another fellow, and I can't even remember who it was. But I told Tom, I said, what he's going to ask you to do is lay down and sit up without using your hands or your feet coming off the floor. You know, a lot of people can't do that. Tom could, and so could John Hawk. So Dan says, he said, "Come here." So he says, "Who do you think I should pick?" I said, "If I was you, I'd use Morga." He said, "Okay, I'll use Morga." So that's how Tom got that job.
What was your impression of Danny Steinman, the director?
Well, I'd known Danny before because he and Stan Winston were friends, and I used to see Danny over at Stan's house. So I mean, it was like going to work with a friend, you know, a buddy that you hang out with, somebody else's house. You know what I'm saying? It was not like meeting a stranger and then going to work and had to work things out personality wise or anything else. I like Danny.
Yeah. Well, I've heard mixed things. That's why I said from the people I've interviewed, some really liked him, and then there's some that had a difficult time with him, you know. But that's why I bring that up.
Hmm.
But no, I did 3 interviews from that film, and very happy about that. And you mentioned Mark Lester earlier. Now, Mark Lester directed one of my favorite Canadian films, which is Class of 1984, which I've done a number of interviews from that as well. Never had Mark on here, but I know that you'd done Firestarter for him, but also Commando as well.
Yeah, one had nothing to do with the other. I didn't get the job because of Mark. There again, it was second unit. It was at a mall. Uh, I was called by the coordinator to do a stair fall as a cop. I don't know whether you remember that in the picture or not, but Arnold is in the mall running around, and they start chasing him. Now he's got that chick that's going in and supposed to get a guy outside so he could get a hold of him. You know, he's trying to find his daughter,
Yeah.
and so I say, "Stop or I'll shoot!" And she comes up and slams me, and down the steps I go, and she's running off. I say, "Hey, stop, lady!" And you know, that's the end of the bit. But that's why I got the job.
Yeah, and you got Pumpkinhead here. I actually have not seen Pumpkinhead.
You hadn't?
I haven't seen it. No.
Gotta watch that. Oh, I had a splendid performance that you can't see that either. But I'll tell you what it is. In the opening of the film, you see this family inside this little house, a little cabin. Little boy's ready to go to bed, and mom's there, and dad goes outside. He goes out to the barn. The wind's coming up, and the weather's turning bad, and he goes out and gets his animals in and locks the barn door and comes back. And then you see this. They cut to a guy screaming down a hill. Blah, blah, blah. He's running like crazy. He stops and looks around, and you realize something's chasing him. He runs and he falls over a fence, and he's crawling through a cornfield and on his back, and this thing is coming after him, but you don't see the thing. And the next scene is he runs up on the porch of this cabin, and he starts beating on the door, asking the guy, "Harley, let me in. It's after me. It's after me." And Harley's outside. "Go away. Go away." Clayton, you know. Anyway, Clayton, who I was, climbed over the railing of this porch and ran off. And then they cut where the Pumpkinhead has got him by his ankles upside down and slams him against a mountain or the hill. And then he falls in a creek. But I don't think it ever went that far. But yeah, and that was a fun movie because Stan Winston directed it and wrote it. And I said, "Stan, I'd like to do a part in the movie." This guy in the beginning, he said, "Well, you're going to have to come in and read for it." I said, "Stan, I got to come in and read for it?" He said, "Yeah. If you want to be an actor, you got to come in and read for it." "Okay, I'll come in." So I went in, I don't remember. There were two other people there, and he said, "Okay, you're up on the porch here, and you're gonna bang on the door." So I went through the thing and almost started crying. And he said, "I'll let you know." And I left, and he came out right after that. He said, "You got the job." He said, "You did a heck of a job in there, man." So I was really pleased about that. But I was the coordinator and got the part of Clayton Heller. So that was interesting.
Yeah, and you did The Rocketeer.
Yeah, I was an FBI agent in that. It was 2 days. I think I was there. It was all.
That had Jennifer Connelly in it. I think she is gorgeous.
I think you like interviewing the ladies.
I never had Jennifer on. Jennifer's not been on here, but I had to bring that up because I think La Rocketeer, Jennifer. But she's also quite a talent as well. She's not just looks.
Yeah.
Yeah. What did you do for The Rocketeer? Are there any specific stunts you did in that?
No, I did a little part as a FBI guy. I showed up on the porch at some house. I didn't even know what it was all about. They call you in. They say, here, say this and say that. Go up to the door, knock on the door, and I was with another guy, and that's it. Cut, and you're out of there. So but it's a credit. So you put it down on your list of it's what you remember. I was telling you can be 5 months on one show and a day on the other. Well, this is one of those 2 days on the other. So.
And the last credit I got listed here is Casino. That's for Martin Scorsese's.
Oh yeah, Martin Scorsese. Did you ever seen Casino?
You know what? It's one of those few Scorsese's films I have not seen, and I've seen a number of his films, but I have not.
Well, go ahead.
I have not seen that one yet. I do understand Sharon Stone won the Oscar, and
another woman. Oh, you like those ladies, don't you?
I like the ladies.
I don't blame you, man.
Huh?
I don't blame you for liking the ladies. I've been around a lot of really beautiful ones myself.
Well, on Friday the 13th part.
Go ahead.
In Friday the 13th Part 5, I mean, I had Melanie Kinnaman in it, and I had her on here, and I'm going to tell you, I was telling her about the first time I seen that movie and saw her. I said I was just in heaven.
Well, see, if you could do video Skype with these people, you could actually look at them as you're talking to them.
I'd have to wipe the drool, huh?
You would be the only guy in town that uses Skype video to do your interviews, and you video at the same time. In other words, you can keep that video and then use it.
Yeah.
Anyway, you can also use the audio off of it. I mean, it's a double-purpose thing.
Yeah, I didn't know that. Here, we don't have the video on this computer. Like, I'm at the station home, but at home, I do have a webcam on my thing. Now, I don't know how it's supposed to be set up. My brother's more on the techno wizard than I am, so maybe it works. I don't know. There might have been a possibility the other night I might have been able to video with you, but I don't know how I could have recorded it. Like, I've never done one right from my house, but maybe eventually that might be something I might want to venture into.
Yeah, why not? You set up a camera and you video what's on the screen.
Yeah. But, Casino. What was it like working with Martin Scorsese's?
I don't know.
Oh,
I didn't work with Martin Scorsese.
Okay. What was your stunt in that film?
Okay. Well, I don't even remember. I mean, I remember seeing him naturally, but because he and Don, anyway, the comedian Rickles.
Don Rickles, okay.
Don Rickles and De Niro and somebody else. The girl wasn't there, but you sit around in a semicircle and chit chat all the time. But so I was there for a week at the Riviera Hotel in Las Vegas. That's where we shot the interiors, or they shot the interior. I talked like I was on the whole show, but what I was is De Niro catches a guy cheating, what he's doing is he has a partner who is playing blackjack. And this cowboy guy is at another table, and he's peeking at the dealer when the dealer shows his cards. You know how they raise them up and look at them and put them back down?
Yep.
Well, that guy is tapping a device on his leg and telling the guy at the 21 table what's going on using code. So De Niro realizes this. He goes over and he gets on the phone and he says, "Send me Armstrong." So I'm Armstrong, head of security is who I am. So I show up. He says, something's going on at table so-and-so, and he goes through that rigmarole. And so I look around, I spot the guy, I walk over, casually, I stand there for a second, I drop, the camera goes down on my hand, and I slide a cattle prod out from up my sleeve, right? I stick it up under his arm, give him the old 1-2, and he starts doing the funky chicken, and he falls on the floor, and I just casually turn and walk away. That's all I did, and I was there for a week to do that.
Wow.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, I've seen...
That's what I did on Casino.
Yeah, I've seen clips from that. It's a pretty violent movie, Casino is.
Yes, it is. And of course, there's the language again with that midget. What's his name?
Joe Pesci?
Joe Pesci. What a schmuck. God. That's about as violent as I'm going to get with my language, but that guy's a real number. Yay.
I hear you. I was brought up in a Christian household, and I read from my Bible and whatnot, and I can tolerate the language, Sometimes, though, a lot of times I don't think it's necessary.
Greg, I used to use it. I was as filthy mouthed as any sailor could be. And when I got saved, that all changed. The Spirit got a hold of me, and boom. In fact, I lost a marriage because of it, because I wanted to evangelize the world, and I realized as time went on that was not the thing to do. A guy chased me for 5 years trying to convince me I should be saved. Anyway, that's another story for another day.
Well,
I'm proud to be saved. I'm proud of my Lord and Savior. But yeah, we're talking about horror movies in the midst of all this.
Well, you know what though? That it just goes to show, anybody can be saved. Even the guy who played Michael Myers.
Absolutely. Well, look at Paul in the Bible. I mean, he was a Christian killer.
Yep.
And before he got saved on the road to Emmaus, and Jesus blinded him. And anyway, yeah.
Did you see The Passion of the Christ?
I did.
What did you think of that? I thought it was fantastic.
All the movies that I've seen, from the one where Jeffrey Hunter played Christ years and years ago, I mean, it was very mild, and Jesus was a beautiful blonde Adonis. And I don't know what he looked like, but I would venture to say that he's Arabic. So he's going to be dark-skinned, dark-haired, brown-eyed, not the beautiful blonde Adonis that he's painted a lot of times. But
yeah,
we'll end up someday, Greg, you and I can tell you that, and we'll find out. But yes, The Passion of the Christ is a wonderful movie. It's violent, really violent. I mean, Christ took a heck of a beating in the movie. The actors on that thing, and what is it, Caviezel?
Jim Caviezel, yep.
Jim Caviezel, he did an excellent job. The stuff that man went through to replicate, the punishment that Jesus took, just the makeup for that would have been horrendous. Every day going through that, putting all that, oh man.
And the Passion made a ton of cash too. It really did well. Like, I remember seeing that in the theater.
Yeah. It was a good film.
Did you see Mel Gibson's latest one, Hacksaw Ridge?
No.
It's also got a Christian background. It's based on a true story.
No, I don't know anything about it.
It's a war film. Stars Andrew Garfield, who was the last Spider-Man. And it's based on the real life of this guy that didn't want to pick up a gun, but he wanted to be a medic.
Oh, I saw the previews for that, and I heard a one of the talking heads, the what do you call him, a critic?
Yeah.
Heard one of those guys just say, "You've got to see this movie, folks. This is makes Private Ryan look like something, but it was a negative that he used." He said it's a phenomenal film, just a phenomenal film. So I know the one now that you were talking about. I haven't seen it, but I probably will.
It's a fantastic film, and this guy is a Christian, and there comes a point in the film where like he's isolated, and he just keeps looking up in the sky, and he's like, God, help me find one more, just one more. And he kept going back, and he'd find a wounded soldier, and he'd drag him. He's in the midst of this turmoil, and he'd drag him back, and he'd have them lowered down the mountainside there to the camp, and they're all wondering where all these injured are coming from. And they said, it's coming from, and they said, the coward, the guy they labeled the coward.
Really?
And at the end of the movie, it shows the real life guy. He's passed away now, but they show footage of him being interviewed about the situation, and he talked about his wife and the stuff that happened to him that this movie was based on, and I think it was a phenomenal movie. It definitely says something about, you don't have to pick up a weapon to participate in a war in a positive way. And he never picked up a weapon. It wasn't shoving the Christian faith in people's face. It was, but it presented it in a way that's it's not too much pressure. And and I think anybody can watch a movie like this and come away with something positive. And like I said, he kept going, Lord, just one more, help me find just one more. And he said that over and over, and they kept wondering that where have all these people coming from, and just this guy that they all looked down on. He turned out to be the one that was making a huge impact.
Greg, I'm looking at the clock. My wife is saying supper's ready. So it's been a pleasure. If it's okay with you, though, I'm going to have to check out.
Okay. Well, before you go, when this is going to air out probably next year, because I'm only on once a week and I got a lot of interviews in front of you. But when it does, I'll send you the link, so you can put it up wherever you want to. But eventually it's going to go on my YouTube channel, and my brother will always put pictures to go along with the audio. Is it okay if I use some headshots of you?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. And is there any way I can get an autographed picture?
Well, I'm not the nice guy, like Pamela Susan Shoop. So if you send me an address, I can do that.
I can do that. And one last thing, would you please say a plug for my show?
Well,
basically, you just say your name, and you're listening to Greg Gilbert in Fredericton, New Brunswick.
And where?
Fredericton, New Brunswick, and the show's called Python's Paradise.
Hey, folks, this is Dick Warlock, Michael Myers from Halloween 2. You're listening to Greg Gilbert, the Python, on, he'll give you the channel, but he's in Fredericksburg, New Brunswick. So God bless all. Take care. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.